You've felt this before. Someone comes to you, they speak softly. They use words like energy and universe and higher purpose. They smile, they seem peaceful, but something doesn't feel right. You ignore it because they sound spiritual, because they seem kind, because you don't want to judge. But here's the truth. Not everyone who talks about love and light actually means it. Some people learn the language, they learn the words. They know exactly what to say to someone who cares about inner peace and living with awareness. And they use those words to get what they want. This isn't about being paranoid. This isn't about distrusting everyone. This is about recognizing something real that happens in everyday life. When you become more aware, when you start caring about kindness and truth, certain people notice, and some of them see it as an opening. They see your goodness, and they decide to use it. They know you don't like conflict. They know you believe in forgiveness. They know you try to see the good in everyone. So they shape their words to fit what you want to hear. And you feel confused because everything they say sounds right, but something inside you feels wrong. That feeling is real. That confusion is a signal, and it's time to listen to it. Because the people who truly walk a spiritual path don't need to announce it every 5 minutes. They don't use big words to impress you. They don't make you feel guilty for having boundaries. They don't twist your beliefs to serve their needs. Real wisdom is quiet. Real kindness is simple. Real peace doesn't demand anything from you. If you're enjoying this message, subscribe, leave a like, and share this with someone who needs it. Now, let's continue. And the real reason this happens is not what most people think. Most people think manipulation only happens when someone yells or threatens or lies openly. But that's not how it works with spiritually aware people. The people who come after you don't raise their voice, they don't insult you, they don't make obvious demands. Instead, they speak your language. They talk about compassion. They remind you that we're all one. They tell you that holding a boundary means you're living in fear. They suggest that if you were truly evolved, you'd understand their side. And suddenly, you're the one who feels bad. You start questioning yourself. You wonder if maybe you're being too harsh. Maybe you're not as loving as you thought. Maybe you need to try harder to understand them. This is what they count on. They know that people who care about growth will always look inward first. They know you'll blame yourself before you blame them. So they point the finger at your lack of compassion, or your need to control, or your unresolved issues. And you believe it, because you want to be better, because you don't want to be the problem. But here's what's actually happening. Someone is using your own values against you. They're not helping you grow, they're making you smaller. Real spiritual growth doesn't make you doubt your own feelings. It doesn't make you ignore warning signs. It doesn't ask you to sacrifice your peace to prove how loving you are. When someone truly respects your path, they don't need to guilt you into staying. They don't twist your words. They don't make everything about how hurt they are when you simply say no. And this is important. Saying no is not unspiritual. Protecting yourself is not fear-based. Recognizing when someone is using you is not judgment. It's clarity. But it gets clearer once you see the next part. One of the first things they do is test you. They don't come in strong, they start small. Maybe they ask for a favor. Maybe they share a story about how hard things are for them right now. Maybe they compliment your wisdom and ask for advice. And you help, because that's who you are. But then it happens again and again. And slowly the asks get bigger. They need money. They need a place to stay. They need you to fix something for them. They need you to take their side in a conflict with someone else. And every time you hesitate, they remind you of your values. I thought you believed in helping people.
I thought you said we should support each other. You always talk about kindness, but when I need you, you turn your back. And you feel guilty, so you say yes again. But here's what you need to see. Help should feel good. Real connection should feel light. When someone genuinely needs support, there's gratitude, there's balance, there's respect for what you give. This doesn't feel like that. This feels heavy. It feels like no matter what you do, it's never enough. It feels like you're always the one bending, always the one apologizing, always the one making room. Because that's exactly what's happening. They're not asking for help, they're taking. And they're dressing it up in spiritual language so you won't notice. Does this sound familiar? Have you ever felt like you were doing all the right things but still ended up exhausted and confused? That's not an accident. That's someone training you to ignore your own limits, to override your instincts, to keep giving even when it hurts. And the longer it goes on, the harder it is to see clearly. Because by now you've invested so much, you've given so much, and walking away feels like failure. It feels like proof that you weren't loving enough. But that's not the truth, and this is where most people get hurt.
They make everything about your flaws. When you finally say something, when you express discomfort or ask for space, they flip it. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're too sensitive. You're not understanding. You're holding on to old wounds. You're projecting. You're stuck in your head. And somehow, the conversation that started with your concern ends with you apologizing. How does that happen? It happens because they know how to redirect. Instead of hearing what you're saying, they focus on how you're saying it. They point out your tone. They remind you of a time when you weren't perfect. They bring up something you did wrong 3 months ago. And before you know it, you're defending yourself. You're explaining. You're trying to prove you're not a bad person. And the original issue? Forgotten. This is intentional. They don't want to address what you brought up. They want to make sure you never bring it up again. Because if you're always defending yourself, you can't ask them to change. If you're always worried about being judgmental or unloving, you won't call out what's actually happening. And that's exactly where they want you. Confused, doubting yourself, walking on eggshells. Have you felt this? Have you noticed that every time you try to talk about something that bothers you, the conversation somehow becomes about your issues instead? That's not communication, that's control. Real conversations, even difficult ones, have room for both people. Both people get to speak. Both people get to be heard. There's no twisting, no rewriting history, no making one person the villain. But with these people, there's always a villain, and it's always you. They paint themselves as the victim, the misunderstood one, the one who's been trying so hard while you've been difficult. And you believe it, because they say it with such conviction, because they use words that sound so reasonable, because they frame everything as if they're the spiritual one, and you're the one who needs to evolve. But it doesn't stop there. They love to remind you of how much they've done for you, even when you never asked for it. They'll bring up a time they helped you, a favor they did, a moment when they were there for you. And they'll use it as proof that you owe them. Not directly. They won't say, "You owe me." They're smarter than that. Instead, they'll say things like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me? I was there for you when no one else was, and now you can't do this one thing? I thought we had a real connection, but I guess I was wrong." And you feel terrible because they did help you once, and you don't want to be ungrateful. But here's the difference. Real kindness doesn't come with a price tag. When someone helps you out of genuine care, they don't keep a mental list. They don't bring it up every time they need something from you. They don't use it as emotional currency. But these people do. They keep score, and they make sure you know it. Every favor they ever did becomes leverage.
Every kind word becomes proof of how much they've sacrificed. And suddenly, you're not in a friendship or a relationship. You're in debt. Does this resonate with you? Have you ever felt like you couldn't say no because of something someone did for you months or even years ago? That's not gratitude. That's guilt. And guilt is a tool. Real relationships don't work this way. Real support is freely given. And when you need to set a boundary, people who truly care about you will respect it. They won't punish you. They won't make you feel like a bad person. They won't drag up the past to make you comply. But people who manipulate, they'll use every bit of history to keep you in line. And if that doesn't work, they move to the next step. But here's the part most people overlook. They isolate you. Not all at once, slowly. They start by making little comments about the people in your life. I don't think they really understand you. They don't seem very supportive. I noticed they talk over you a lot. And at first, it seems like they're looking out for you, like they're helping you see things more clearly. But what's really happening is they're planting doubt. They're making you question the people who actually care about you, the people who might notice what's going on, the people who might tell you the truth. And little by little, you pull back from those people. You stop calling your sister as much. You skip that weekly coffee with your friend. You tell yourself you're just busy, or that those relationships weren't that strong anyway. But the truth is, you've been guided away from them. And now, the person who's been doing the guiding, they're the only one left. You don't have anyone else to talk to. You don't have anyone else to check in with. And when you're confused or hurt, you go to them, the same person who caused the problem. And they comfort you. They tell you they're the only one who really gets you. They remind you that everyone else let you down, but they're still here. And you feel grateful, even though you also feel trapped. Have you been here? Have you noticed that the people who used to be close to you somehow drifted away after someone new came into your life? That's not coincidence. That's isolation. And it's one of the oldest tactics in the book. Because when you're alone, you're easier to control. You don't have outside perspectives. You don't have anyone reminding you of who you were before this person showed up. You only have their version of reality. And after a while, it starts to feel like the only version that exists. This is how they keep you. And it gets clearer once you see the next part. They never take responsibility. Ever. When something goes wrong, it's always someone else's fault. The job, the ex, the family, the universe, you. They'll talk about their struggles, they'll share their pain, and they'll make it very clear that none of it is their doing. They're the victim, always. And because you're someone who cares, you want to help. You want to support them. You want to believe that if they just had the right circumstances, things would be better. So you give more, you accommodate more, you adjust your life to make theirs easier. But nothing changes. Because the problem was never the circumstances. The problem is they've learned that playing the victim works. It gets them attention, it gets them sympathy, it gets them what they want. And as long as it works, they'll keep doing it. Does this sound familiar? Have you ever felt like you were constantly rescuing someone, but they never actually changed? That's because they don't want to change. What they want is for you to keep rescuing them. Real growth happens when someone looks at their life and says, I played a part in this. I can do something different. But these people don't do that. They just find new reasons why life is unfair, new people to blame, new stories to tell. And if you ever suggest that maybe, just maybe, they could try a different approach, you become the enemy. Suddenly, you're not being supportive. You're being judgmental. You're not understanding their pain. You're making it worse. And you back off because you don't want to hurt them. But here's the truth. You can't help someone who refuses to help themselves. You can't love someone into taking responsibility. You can't care someone into change. All you can do is exhaust yourself trying. And that's what they're counting on. Because the more tired you are, the less you question, the less energy you have for boundaries, the less you notice what's really happening. But there's something deeper.
They punish you for growing. This is the part that hurts the most. You start to see things more clearly. You start to recognize the imbalance. You start to realize that maybe this isn't healthy. And you make a change. Maybe you say no. Maybe you take a step back. Maybe you just stop responding as quickly. And immediately they react. They get angry. They get cold. They disappear for days and then come back with a guilt-heavy message about how hurt they are. Or they go the other direction. They become extra sweet, extra loving. They tell you how much you mean to them, how they can't imagine life without you. And you soften, because that's what you wanted to hear. That's what made you feel valued. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't about missing you. This isn't about love. This is about pulling you back in. Because the moment you started setting a boundary, the moment you started prioritizing your own peace, you became a threat, not to their well-being, to their control. And they can't have that. So they do whatever it takes to get you back in place. They punish you for trying to grow. They make it painful to choose yourself. And it works. Most of the time, it works. Because you care. Because you don't want to hurt anyone. Because you convince yourself that maybe you were overreacting. Maybe it wasn't that bad. So you go back. And things are okay for a little while. Until you try to grow again. Until you try to choose yourself again. And the whole thing repeats. Have you lived this? Have you felt like every time you tried to stand up for yourself, you ended up back where you started? That's not weakness. That's not failure. That's someone actively working to keep you small. And the only way out is to see it for what it is. Not to hate them, not to fight them, but to stop letting their reaction control your choices. Because your peace matters. Your boundaries matter. Your life matters. And it doesn't stop there.
So how do you protect yourself? First, you stop explaining. When you set a boundary with someone who respects you, you don't need an essay to justify it. You say what you need and they listen. But with these people, every boundary becomes a debate. Every no turns into a negotiation. They want details. They want reasons. They want proof that your boundary is valid. And if you give it to them, they'll pick it apart. They'll find holes. They'll convince you that you're wrong. So you stop giving them that material. You keep it simple. I can't do that. That doesn't work for me. I need space right now. No justification, no long explanation, just the truth. And yes, they'll push back. They'll ask why. They'll act confused. They'll try to make you feel guilty for not giving them more. But you hold steady. Because the right people don't need an explanation to respect your limits. Second, you trust your discomfort. If something feels off, it is off. You don't need proof. You don't need witnesses. You don't need to wait until it gets worse. Your gut is telling you something. Listen to it. Spiritually aware people are often taught to rise above feelings like suspicion or unease, to see the good in everyone, to give endless chances. But that teaching has been misused. Discernment is not judgment. Protecting yourself is not fear. Recognizing when someone is harming you is not unspiritual. It's wisdom. Third, you reconnect with the people who've been there all along. The ones who didn't ask you to prove your love. The ones who didn't twist your words. The ones who gave you space when you needed it and stayed close when you didn't. Those people matter. And if you've lost touch with them, reach out. It's not too late. Because the truth is, real connection doesn't require you to lose yourself. Real support doesn't feel like drowning. And once you've tasted that kind of peace again, you won't settle for anything less. And this is where most people get stuck. But you don't have to.
Here's the final truth. Not everyone who speaks the language of love actually knows what love is. Not everyone who talks about awareness is actually aware. And not everyone who seems peaceful is at peace. Some people learn the words, they study the tone, they mirror what you care about, and they use it to get close to you. But you are not required to stay close to someone who harms you, even if they smile while they do it. You are not required to keep giving to someone who only takes. You are not required to sacrifice your well-being to prove how spiritual or loving you are. Real spiritual growth does not make you weaker, it makes you clearer. It teaches you to see the difference between kindness and people-pleasing, between compassion and self-abandonment, between forgiveness and letting someone hurt you over and over again. And once you see that difference, you can't unsee it. So trust what you see, trust what you feel, trust the part of you that knows when something is wrong. That part of you is not broken, it's not unloving, it's not afraid. It's wise, and it's trying to protect you. Alan Watts once said that we often confuse spirituality with weakness, awareness with passivity. But true awareness sees clearly, and what it sees, it names. You don't have to call it manipulation if that word feels too harsh. But you do have to call it what it is, not good for you. And then you have to walk away. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with quiet certainty. Because your peace is not up for negotiation. Your boundaries are not up for debate. And your life is too valuable to waste on people who only want to use it. So let them go. Let them find someone else to confuse. Let them be someone else's lesson. And you keep walking. You keep growing. You keep choosing yourself. Because that's not selfish. That's survival. That's wisdom. That's freedom. If this message helped you, subscribe so you don't miss the next reflection. Leave a like and share this with someone who needs to hear this today.